When I was young, my father gave me this advice. Rich people buy time. Poor people buy stuff. Ambitious people buy skills. Lazy people buy distraction. I can give you the first and easiest 2025 prediction. Look at what you spend money on, look at your calendar, and wherever you invest is what you will get more of. So many people are surprised when they look at their bank account next year and it's lower than they want it to be. They look at their accomplishments from that year and it's not the things they set out to do. But when you look at their calendar and their credit card expenses, it's very obvious why those things didn't happen. Because we vote with our dollars about the things that we care about. We vote about the type of person that we want to become. And as the first thing that you can do today for next year is actually comment below this video, and I rarely ask for this, the thing that you're actually going to do today. Not what you're going to begin doing next year or what your resolution is going to be, but if it's important enough to do for future you, it's certainly important enough to do for current you, because current you, by the way, is the only you that's ever going to enjoy life. Many people who want to start next year think, okay, well, I'm just going to see if this happens, but it doesn't work that way. You have to basically make the decision that this is the type of person that I want to become, and then these are the actions that that type of person would take, and then we align our calendars and our budgets in accordance with that so that the investments we make yield the results that we want. But the thing is that people want to say, hey, wouldn't it be great if I owned Apple, but they never buy the stock? The first thing we do is we eliminate all the stuff that sucks. First big category is bad friends. So if you want better friends, get used to seeing them less. Better friends are busy friends. I started realizing that the people that I liked the most, I actually didn't spend as much time with, and the people that were always available were the ones that I didn't want to become more like. Here's 5 questions you should consider when thinking about whether to keep a friend in your life or cut them. Question number 1 is, if someone told you that you're a lot like your friend, would you take that as a compliment? Second, are you truly fulfilled by the friendship, or is it just someone to keep you from being lonely? Third, are you able to be unapologetically yourself, or do you feel the need to act differently to please that friend or to be around that friend? Fourth, do you like who this friend is right now today, or do you like the idea of the friend and who they could be someday? And then finally, 5, would you want your future or imagined child to be friends with someone like this person? And I think it's a really wonderful litmus test because it forces you to take a look outside of yourself in order to have perspective from a third-party angle on the true quality of that person. But the reality is that rare people are by definition rare. I like to think, does this person have the same scale of goals that I have? So it doesn't mean that they have to have the same goals as you, but it has to be the same level of goals as you, because at least you're going in the same directions. And if you are someone who's ambitious, and this is me just talking specifically to you because there's only a few people who are watching this who really are, and you'll know that if it's you, you have to get used to being alone. Because there are seasons where you'll basically transition from one group of friends into another. And it's not even a group of friends. You'll usually transition from a group of friends into no friends. And then you'll find 1 or 2 people who are at a new level. And then sometimes those people introduce you to some of their friends. And if you keep walking and you keep outpacing, then that group will then start retiring past you. And then maybe one person stays with you, maybe no one does, and you'll have another lonely period. I'm saying this because I used to think that there was something wrong with me, when in reality, I just didn't understand what the nature of being exceptional meant. To be exceptional means that you are the exception. It means that you are not normal. And so it's normal for normal people to find you abnormal if you do things that are not normal. Don't let people who have mediocre goals deter you from taking actions that make you great, because it makes you different. And so I think that a lot of people don't actually look at themselves in the mirror and say, like, 1 year from today, will I remember this football game? Or will I remember the fact that I'm not where I said I wanted to be? And to me, that was significantly more painful. Now, this is an uncomfortable fact for a lot of people. Your ability to delay gratification is actually a function of intelligence. The sign of intelligence is that you can actually expand the reinforcement window and they can still abstract it back to the original action. If you want to practice intelligence, then being able to actively delay your need for a result or reward from the work you do will make you a more intelligent person, because your rate of learning will actually increase, despite the fact that your reward rate will decrease in the short term. And so to give you full transparency on what 2025 might look like if you accomplish your goals at the end, you might have a different friend group or no friends at all for a season. Because you don't become like the people you admire, you become like the people you want to impress. Because it's the people whose voices you hear when you're about to make a big life decision. And so when you make a big life decision, you don't listen to the people closest to you. You should listen to the people closest to your goals. And some of them may not be in your neighborhood or your city or your state or your high school or your college. They might just be people you follow on the internet. And you have to abstract, what would that person think about this decision? Not my mom, not my homie, not my uncle, or that person at church. And so I think this is a great transition of thinking through, instead of necessarily even having mentors, having heroes. Here's the uncomfortable truth, which is that winners focus on winning. Losers focus on winners. And you never receive hate from above, always below, because winners have their eyes on the goal, not on other people. And so you have to decide whether you want to be a loser or a winner. And I'm just being real with you. What this looks like in reality, and maybe for you in 2025, will be like this. First, you look like an idiot to everyone else while you try to figure it out. Then, everyone else looks like an idiot for ever doubting it. And so everyone takes a different amount of years to stop giving a fuck about what everyone else thinks. And if you're going to get there eventually, you might as well start today and enjoy the benefits longer. So if I'm 85 years old, I think about what that man cares about. And that man cares about very, very little. All you have to do is talk to an elderly person or a grandparent and be like, what do you think about this? A lot of times they're like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Life is literally too short. They literally don't have time for it. And so I think to myself, if that's the ultimate version of me, if I'm going to get there eventually, and that's what the wisest people think after having the most life experience, then why would I not try to cheat code that into today and then not have to go looking back from 85 and think, man, I wish I knew then what I know now. Look forward to 85-year-old self and say, I am going to choose to learn the lesson I know I'm going to learn and act as if I knew it today. Because the difference between them and you is that what they consider work, you consider life. And so you have to accept that you have a fundamental different understanding of how life works. And I believe that is a more accurate view of reality. The reason that the rich can get richer is because they see the world differently than the poor. And so it makes sense that if your poor friends don't see what you see, that they see through the lens of poverty. And all my goal in life is to be able to see reality more accurately. And so in the beginning, you have to develop this armor, this thick skin around people saying those little snide comments of like, you work too hard, you're too obsessed, you have a toxic work capacity, and why are you working weekends? Why are you working late nights? You're not, like, this is not worth it. They're not paying you enough for the work that you do. All of these different things, because eventually that armor on the outside actually just becomes one with you and you don't even hear it anymore. Because I can promise you that those people who were in my life decades ago, they're just not even, I don't hear those claims anymore for two reasons. One, because my reality changed so drastically that they couldn't say anything. And secondarily, they're just not in my world anymore. I was only able to get here because what they deemed acceptable, I deemed intolerable. How far you go in life, I truly believe this, is based and predicated only on one thing, which is your actual standard. And so I believe that the person who runs any company or runs any division should be the person who has the highest standards. And so the person who should have the highest standard for you is you. And so it makes sense that they have a lower bar, but why would I listen to their bar on my life? I think that that standard is the one thing that rich kids get from rich parents more than anything else. Is because they have an expectation of life. They don't accept opportunities that are below that standard. And so they actually get their huge leg up on the pick, on the vehicles that they choose to pursue. And so one of the tougher parts, if you're not from an area where people make a lot of money, or you don't know anybody who's a super successful entrepreneur, is that you basically have to borrow someone else's measuring stick. And you have to say, is this the standard that Elon would pursue? Is this the standard Bezos would pursue? Is this the standard Jobs would pursue? And if it isn't, then why are you doing it? If you want to be like them, then act like them. If you want to be like your friends, then you can act like your friends, but don't be surprised that you have what they have. If you can't sit still ignore notifications and focus on one task for 8 hours straight, never expect to build anything great. And as uncomfortable as that is, it's also the truth. Like, I don't know a single incredibly successful entrepreneur that can't sit down and have hyper-focused periods of time, sometimes weekends, weeks at a time, where they don't talk to anyone and they just hammer away. And it's whether they're coding for software or they're making some insane marketing campaign and all the email follow-ups and all the text follow-ups and the affiliate promotions and incentives, or someone who's creating a product that they're designing and they're in the shop and they keep tweaking at it, or there's somebody who's hyper-scaling a company and saying, I'm going to sit in 20 interviews a day for 7 days straight so I can hire 20 people this week because I need to get going, right? Like, if you can't sit still and ignore notifications and focus for a day, nothing great will get accomplished, because it's not about what you want, it's about what's required. And whether that's your best or not is irrelevant. It's just there's a price tag and you gotta be willing to pay for it, or you don't get the thing. And a lot of times it's not what you want. And I spend a lot of time trying to dispel the concept of like follow your passion, because I think it leads more people astray than it helps. Because it's very easy for someone who's successful, who's already delegated tons of things, to only then focus on their area of genius and then say, here for my seat, do what I do. But there's a very big difference between doing what someone does and doing what they did to get there. And I think this is what's lost in a lot of the content that I see in the entrepreneurial space. And to be clear, whenever I'm trying to get to the next level, I often have to take on things that I don't know how to do. And I have to learn how to do them, which means I have to suck for a period of time. And sucking sucks. But the thing is you have to be able to embrace that period of time and say, like, this is the cost of greatness. And so I'll give you something very tactical. So I have timers in a lot of my offices, and my team has adopted this too, which is, I like to time block, which is essentially saying, how long do I think this is going to take? And you can do this on a week scale, you can do it on a daily level, it depends on the level of project you're tackling. But for me, even on the most micro level, I say, okay, how long should this take? I'll then crank this thing, boop, I think this should take 20 minutes, and then I hit start, and I let the timer go. And if for whatever reason something distracts me, I pause it so that I know that I didn't actually work that period of time. And so what happens is it will give you a very real look at how long you're actually working versus how long you think you're working, and you tell other people working, and you Instagram how long you're working. And as I've become more efficient at work, meaning my output per unit of time has gone up, I've realized that there's just been a significant decrease in the distractions that I allow to interrupt me. Again, if you want to stay focused, focus occurs when you remove everything else. What's left is focus. And so Jerry Seinfeld has this famous process that he talks about with writing. And I think writers are also wonderful people for talking to for deep work, because it's the nature of the work they do. One of the things that he did, and he has done for years for his stand-up so he can script it out, is that he locks himself in a room that has no windows and has nothing but a yellow notepad and a pen. And he tells himself that he has to go in that room and he doesn't have to write, but he can't do anything else. And so what ends up happening is that writing occurs as a default. And so focus kind of works the same way. You eliminate everything else to create focus. You don't try and push harder while also having these disruptions. So there's 3 easy ways that I make my phone less distracting. The first is I switch it to grayscale. And so grayscale decreases consumption across all people by 30%-ish, and that's research backed, which is pretty cool. The second thing is turning off all notifications across all apps on your phone, because you never want your app to be dictating when it's convenient for the app to disrupt you. Like, how ridiculous is that? But we let apps have that permission. Most phones and people want to push notifications to you. I want to pull them when it's convenient for me. The third thing is other people. And so I have a mode on my phone where no one can get through. And when I do that, then I can reach out to them when it's convenient for me. Because if it's actually an emergency, call 911. And if it's not a true emergency, then it can wait. And here's the thing, it's always harder, takes longer, and costs more than you think it will. That is a reflection of poor expectations, not that reality is bad. And so it makes sense that it would be harder, take longer, and cost more. Because if it didn't, then everyone would have it. And if everyone had it, then it wouldn't be worthwhile. And so literally the difficulty of the task that you embark on is proportional to the reward that you ultimately get, because you are the asset that you build more than the achievement. And so if it's hard, that's amazing, because it will make you that much harder once you conquer it. And it will also make it harder for anybody else who wants to follow in your footsteps. And so the higher up the mountain you climb, the thinner the air gets, and the rarer the climber or explorer must be in order to get there. And so I don't know about you, but I would so much rather climb a mountain that so few people have been able to climb, so that I can see a view that other people haven't seen. And so there's the famous quote, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. It makes sense that right now we have a lot of weak men, because it's been pretty good times. The good news about that is that it's so easy to beat them. You just have to show up, be on time, prepare the night before, remember people's names, actually follow up when you say you were going to, and try like you mean it, rather than trying like you want to get credit for trying. The world doesn't work that way. It gives you credit for achieving. And the reason that you want credit for trying is because you want it to cost less, take shorter time period, and be easier. It's like going to the store and being like, oh, I've got these Jordans that I really want to buy. I got $50. I'm so excited to buy them. You go to the store and see that they're $300. At that point, you can just say, Jordans aren't for me. Or you can say, oh, I will have to keep working and keep saving so that I can afford this. And so it's a lot about affording the goals that you want to achieve. And a lot of things that we have to spend in order to get them is the time and the rejection of not achieving what we want on the timeline we originally thought. Like, what makes success hard is that the expectation that society puts, because we only see the highlight reel, you actually only see people after they finish the race. People think success is like watching a marathon, not running a marathon. When you watch a marathon, you look at the beginning and you look at the end. It only takes you a couple of seconds to see both of those. But running a marathon is 4, 5, 6 straight hours of breathing heavy, wondering when it's going to end, counting, starting to play games in your mind of like, okay, I'm 2/3 of the way there. I'm two more quarters of that. I'm only 1/5 of 1/8 of the way there. And you keep doing this to play tricks on your mind to keep going. But the thing is that in a mile marker race, it's very clear to know how you're going to get to the finish line and how long it's going to take. The only difference with success is that you just have to keep running and you don't know where the finish line is. And people will only cheer you on at that finish line that they don't know where it is either, which means you have to get used to running alone. And so the difficulty is you have to start running and you have to keep running, but you just don't know whether you're running for a mile or 300. And so this is where the pacing is important. So a lot of people will run really hard. They'll think, because they only saw the beginning of the marathon on TV and the finish of the marathon on TV, that they can just sprint, because both of those clips only lasted a couple of seconds. So they start their marathon of success of whatever it is they're going after by sprinting as hard as they can. And then they realize that there's no one around and there's just a bunch of open road ahead of them. And they're like, how long is this going to take? And that's when reality sets in. A lot of times it's going to take longer. So one of the big nasty things that you have to eliminate on this path is the identity that you have about yourself, the isms that you claim. And so, for example, like I'm not good at math, I'm not techie. And so you make these statements and they don't serve you. Fundamentally, you should have one razor that rules all decisions. And this is pretty cruel, but it's also the reality of the world, which is, does this thing, person, belief, make it more or less likely that I hit my goals? And so if you run every single thing you do, the actions you take, the people you hang out with, you having your phone in the room, you saying, I'm not techie, does this increase or decrease the likelihood that you hit your goals? Everyone's childhood was difficult. And if you want to win the award for hardest childhood, congrats, you win. You feel better? Right. No one cares about what happened to you then, only what you can make happen now. Identity is a lie. We only describe people about who they are by what they do. Doing is being. And so if you want to be somehow different, You have to do different things, and then only afterwards will people describe you based on the actions you take. The first thing you do when you meet somebody is you find out what do you do, and that gives you indications. And if you want to describe who someone is, what do you say? You describe what they do. And so this means that our identity is 100% under our control because we control what we do. And then only after the fact will other people describe you in that way. So we covered environmental things like with the phone and having a timer. We covered interpersonal things in terms of our identity and voting with our dollars and time about the things that we care about. We eliminated the bad people and their opinions about us that affect our behavior. And so we've eliminated all these things. So now we've made room to get started. And the good news is you only need 3 things to win: the balls to start, the brains to learn, and the heart to never give up. So my ask of you is to make the commitment. Now this is, again, the elimination of alternatives. To make the commitment to never stop. And so it doesn't mean that I'm asking you to commit to be successful. I'm asking you to commit to keep running, to keep walking the marathon. Even if you have to pant and you have to slow down, you just can't stop.